Period three begins with the French and Indian War and ends with the what's called the Revolution of 1800, which was actually the election of Thomas Jefferson, the first Democratic Republican. Unit 3 or Period 3 begins with the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War lasted from 1754 until 1763. Like most wars, there's causes of wars, and they typically begin before the actual fighting began. So the French and Indian War was part of a larger global conflict between the English and the French that was not part of the Hundred Years' War. This is one of four wars fought between the English and French. In Europe, this war was called the Seven Years' War, but in North America, it was called the French and Indian War. And as you can see from this map here, you can see that the French forts located by the squares are all located around the Great Lakes to protect it from English encroachment that's identified here in the orange part of the map here. And so this was a war that was known for a couple of reasons. One was a long-standing rivalry between the English and the French known as Anglo-French imperial competition. Anglo means English, French means, of course, France. Imperial refers to the fact that both were trying to acquire an empire or take over other lands. And then competition, of course, is war. So put everything together, it's a war between the English and French over building empires. And in North America, of course, it was called the Seven Years' War. The war was fought over the Ohio River Valley as one of the other causes of the French and Indian War, and that's the area that's shown on the map here. And here's another more a color photograph of what part of the Ohio River Valley looks like. And the war begins with the Virginia Royal Governor appointed by the King of England sending General George Washington to take the largest French fort in the Ohio River Valley, known as Fort Duquesne. Today it's known as Pittsburgh, and this is an older map showing what the fort would have looked like in the bend of the Ohio River. George Washington was smart enough to realize that there was a very good chance that he was going to be defeated in this battle, so he built a temporary fort that he named Fort Necessity, and I'm showing that in the picture here. And sure enough, when he attacked Fort Duquesne, he had to retreat back to Fort Necessity, where he had to surrender, and the French asked him never to raise his arms against the French again, in which George Washington promised to never fight against the French again. Well, he returned back to Virginia and rejoined General Braddock. And General Braddock was the head of the British Army in North America, and he was going to, he was embarrassed by the loss of the Virginia militia, and so he was going to send regular British Army troops to Fort Duquesne to defeat them. Well, he winds up being ambushed and killed, and George Washington successfully leads a retreat. The turning point battle of the French and Indian War was Quebec. Quebec was located strategically for the French as a city and a fortification on a bend in the St. Lawrence River. The St. Lawrence River connects the Great Lakes of North America to the Atlantic Ocean. So any warships trying to pass by Quebec would have to come under French guns. And so this was the center of French fur trade in North America, and the French did not want to lose Quebec to the British. Here's a sort of give you a picture of what that the city sat up on top of a plateau and commanded the control of the St. Lawrence River. There's a longer shot of the city. Quebec was eventually captured by the British because they learned of a secret pathway up the cliffs and from a spy, and were able to defeat the French army on the Plains of Abraham. And because of this defeat, the French surrender North America to the English, and in the Treaty of Paris of 1763. That date, 1763, is important to remember because that's the date of the treaty, and that's the date of the end of the French and Indian War. What were the terms of the treaty? Well, you can see from the map here, Great Britain or England received all lands east of the Mississippi River and all of Canada. This concludes period 3, the first section.